Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today, we're taking a deep dive into some unconventional English learning methods from the Effortless English Zone YouTube channel. And get this, they use school life as a framework to explain their points. So we're about to revisit those high school hallways in a way you probably never expected.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they use this familiar framework to make their points relatable. Think about it. We've all been through school, so they're tapping into this shared experience to make complex ideas about language learning click.
I love that. It's like sneaking in a lesson while you think you're just reminiscing about your locker combination. Okay, let's get specific. They talk about core subjects playing a role in English fluency. Even math. Math, really.
Absolutely. They argue that math is more than just crunching numbers. It's about building those crucial critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And you know what those skills are transferable to language? Think about understanding a complex English sentence. It's like solving an equation. You break it down, analyze the structure, and figure out the relationships between the different parts.
That's a really cool way to look at it. It's like math is giving you the mental tools to decode English. No wonder. I always felt like grammar rules were a puzzle. What about science? How does science fit into this school life framework?
Science is all about curiosity and experimentation. It's about asking questions, forming hypotheses, and testing things out. An Effortless English Zone wants you to bring that same spirit to learning English. Don't be afraid to experiment with new words and expressions to make mistakes and learn from them.
I love that. Treating language learning like a science experiment. So you're not passively absorbing information, you're actively engaging with the language, testing its boundaries and discovering new depths.
Precisely. And they connect this to specific science disciplines too. Like, for example, understanding biology can give you a leg up when you're reading about health or the environment. Chemistry might be helpful when you're discussing food or medicine. And physics could help you understand articles about technology.
So it's like there's this cross-pollination between subjects. Your knowledge in one field actually strengthens your English in that field. Do they touch on history and social studies as well?
Yes, definitely. They emphasize how these subjects give you context and background knowledge. And that's really important for understanding English, like idioms or cultural references or historical allusions. They all come from a deeper understanding of history and culture.
It's like having a secret decoder ring. The more you know about the world, the more you can unlock those hidden layers of meaning in English. Okay, so I need to circle back to math for a second. They argue that mastering different levels of math, like from basic arithmetic all the way to calculus, can help with language.
It's fascinating. They suggest that arithmetic helps with basic sentence structure and word order, and algebra with its abstract concepts that prepares you for metaphors and figurative language.
So if you can grasp variables in algebra, you're one step closer to understanding how a word can have multiple meanings, or how a phrase can represent something beyond just the literal definition.
Exactly. And then geometry with spatial reasoning and proofs. That can be applied to analyzing complex sentences or even constructing arguments. And calculus focuses on change and relationships. That can help you understand the subtle shifts in meaning with verb tenses or grammatical structures.
Wow, I never realized how much overlap there was. Maybe this explains why some people who excel in math also pick up languages quickly.
That's a great point. And Effortless English Zone gets into how this all plays out in core language arts subjects too. So reading, writing, speaking, and listening.
Okay, let's break those down. Starting with reading, what do they recommend we focus on?
They're big on expanding your vocabulary, but not just memorizing lists. It's about really understanding how words are used in different contexts, understanding their nuances and connections to other words.
So it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Exactly. They also emphasize active reading, taking notes, highlighting passages, summarizing what you read. These all help you engage with the material more deeply.
So it's like you're having a conversation with the author, not just passively reading.
Yes. And they also say to read a variety of materials. Don't limit yourself to just one genre or type of text. Explore different things. The more variety, the better.
That makes sense. It's like expanding your palette.
Yeah.
Okay, what about writing? Any tips for those of us who struggle to put our thoughts into words?
Practice, practice, practice. The more you write, the more comfortable you'll become. They suggest starting with simple things like journaling or even writing short emails. Make it a habit.
So even a few sentences each day can make a difference.
Absolutely. They also recommend finding a writing buddy or a writing group to get feedback. Having someone else look at your writing can help you identify your strengths and weaknesses.
That's so valuable. It's like having a coach. Okay, so now for speaking and listening, Those are often the toughest for English learners.
They stress the importance of having real conversations as much as possible. Find opportunities to talk with native English speakers. That's how you develop fluency and confidence.
But what if you don't have many chances to speak with native English speakers?
Well, they have some creative ideas for that. They suggest using things like movies, TV shows, podcasts, and audiobooks, but not just listening passively. Actively engage. Pay attention to pronunciation and intonation and how they use idioms. You can even try shadowing, repeating what you hear.
That's a great tip. It's like having a personal language tutor right at home. I noticed they also highlight literature.
Yes, they see literature as a gateway to a deeper understanding of the language and culture. Reading different types of literature exposes you to a wider range of vocabulary and grammar.
So it's not just about learning the mechanics of English, it's about immersing yourself in its beauty.
Exactly. Explore different genres and time periods.
Okay, we've covered the core subjects, but they take this school life analogy even further. They talk about how electives and extracurricular activities can actually boost your English.
Really?
Yes.
They make a strong case for how activities outside the classroom can contribute to language development. For example, they highlight art.
Art. How can painting or drawing help me speak English?
Well, it might not directly teach you grammar, but it helps you develop creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. And those are valuable assets when it comes to language. Think about coming up with creative ways to express yourself. Understanding metaphors and similes, appreciating nuances, these all require a degree of artistic thinking.
Interesting. So maybe tapping into my artistic side can help me break free from rigid grammar structures. What about music?
Again, it might not directly translate to grammar or vocabulary, but think about the skills you develop when learning music. Discipline, patience, perseverance, attention to detail, those are valuable in language learning too.
So it's like cross-training for your brain.
Exactly. Then there's drama and theater.
Okay, that one makes a bit more sense. I can see how acting can help with pronunciation and fluency.
Yes, definitely. But they go deeper than that. They talk about how drama can build confidence, improve your communication skills, and enhance empathy. And empathy is crucial for understanding those nuances in language. Picking up on subtle cues and responding appropriately.
It's like you're stepping into someone else's shoes. And they even suggest learning other foreign languages. Wait, wouldn't it just make things more confusing?
It might seem counterintuitive, but they argue that learning another language can actually enhance your cognitive flexibility and make you more aware of the structure of language in general.
So instead of getting bogged down in English grammar, I'm able to see the bigger picture.
Exactly.
They talk about physical education too, right?
Yes. They emphasize the connection between physical activity stress reduction and improved mental clarity.
Yeah, I always feel more alert and focused after a good workout.
Exactly. It highlights how interconnected our physical and mental well-being are.
Okay, so we've explored all these subjects and activities that can benefit English learning. But most people can't just drop everything and go back to school. How do they address the practical side of balancing work life and language learning?
They do offer advice on that. They acknowledge that it's all about finding a balance, making choices about how you spend your time and energy.
That's where things start to feel overwhelming. Where do I even begin?
Well, they start by emphasizing the importance of setting priorities.
Easier said than done.
I know. They recommend thinking about your long-term goals. What do you want to achieve? Where does English fit into that picture? Once you have a sense of your priorities, it becomes easier to decide how to spend your time.
So connecting my language learning goals to a bigger purpose.
Exactly. And they also say to be realistic about your limitations. Don't try to do everything at once. Start with smaller achievable goals and build from there.
So slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly. And it's okay to say no to things, even things that seem appealing. If you're already stretched thin, taking on something new will just add more stress.
That's all about setting boundaries.
Right.
Okay, so once you set your priorities, how do you manage your time?
They're big advocates of creating a detailed schedule.
I've tried that before, but it always falls apart when life throws curveballs.
Yeah, they acknowledge that flexibility is key. It's not about creating a strict timetable. It's about having a framework and adjusting it when needed.
So like having a roadmap, but being open to detours.
Exactly.
I love that. What other time management tips do they offer?
They recommend using tools like calendars, planners, or even just a simple to-do list.
Those are good for staying organized, but sometimes it feels like there just aren't enough hours in the day.
Right. Well, for that, they recommend breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Divide and conquer.
Exactly. They also suggest time blocking. Allocate specific blocks of time for certain tasks.
It's like creating those little pockets of dedicated time. I can see how that'd be helpful.
They also encourage listeners to identify their peak productivity times.
What does that mean?
Well, everyone has times of day when they feel more alert and focused, so figure out when your brain is working best and schedule your most challenging tasks then.
I'm definitely a morning person. Maybe I should be doing my English study first thing.
It's worth experimenting to see what works for you. And also pay attention to your energy levels throughout the day.
What do you mean?
Your mental energy fluctuates. So if you're feeling drained, it's better to take a break and come back to the task when you have more energy.
So listening to my body and giving myself permission to step away when I need to.
Exactly. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is take a break.
That's great advice. And it ties into their emphasis on self-care.
It does. Taking care of yourself is essential for optimal learning.
Okay, so let's talk self-care. What do they recommend for keeping our minds and bodies in tip-top shape for language learning?
They start with the basics, getting enough sleep. Sleep is crucial for memory and cognitive function.
I know I'm definitely not at my best when I'm sleep deprived.
Exactly. And try to establish a regular sleep schedule, even on weekends.
Okay, what about diet?
They emphasize a balanced diet, one that provides your brain with the nutrients it needs. Focus on whole foods like fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats. And limit processed foods, sugary drinks, and too much caffeine.
So fueling my brain with the right kind of fuel.
Exactly. And they also talk about staying hydrated. Drinking enough water throughout the day helps keep you alert and focused.
I definitely feel sluggish when I'm dehydrated. What about exercise?
They're big advocates of it, and not just for physical health. It reduces stress, improves your mood, boosts energy levels, and even enhances cognitive function.
So it's like a win-win.
Exactly. And find activities you enjoy. It doesn't have to be strenuous. Even a short walk can make a difference.
It's about making exercise a part of your lifestyle.
Exactly. And lastly, they talk about relaxation and stress management.
That's something we can all use more of. Our lives are so busy.
Right. Well, they suggest incorporating relaxation techniques into your daily routine, like meditation, deep breathing, or spending time in nature.
Those are all great. But what if I'm already feeling overwhelmed and don't have time for all that?
Well, they say that even small changes can make a big difference. Start with just a few minutes each day and gradually increase it.
So it's about making self-care a priority.
Exactly. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
This has been really insightful. I never would have thought about the structure of school life as an approach to language learning.
It is amazing how all these different subjects and activities can play a role in language development.
It's like we have a new lens for viewing language learning.
Exactly.
So for our listeners out there, what's the key takeaway from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's not just about textbooks and grammar rules. It's about embracing a holistic approach and engaging your mind and body in different ways.
And it's about finding what works for you. Experiment, explore different methods, and think outside the box.
Exactly. And most importantly, have fun.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, exploring the effortless English zone approach through the lens of school life.
We've seen how core subjects like math and science can enhance your language skills, how electives like art and music can unlock creativity, and how extracurricular activities can build valuable skills.
And we touched on the practical side of things.
Setting priorities, managing your time, and prioritizing self-care. But we're not done yet. In part 2, we'll explore how activities outside the classroom can contribute even more to your English fluency.
We'll talk about sports teams, student councils, clubs, volunteering, and more.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the effortless English zone philosophy. Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast. Let's step outside the classroom now and explore those extracurricular experiences, the ones that can surprisingly boost your English skills.
I'm ready. Let's hit those playing fields. Effortless English Zone talks about sports teams, right?
Right. And it's not just about shouting pass the ball in perfect English, although that could be fun practice. The benefit is really in the skills you develop. Teamwork, communication, discipline, resilience. These are all qualities that any English learner needs.
I totally agree. It's like you're training for a marathon. The mental toughness you develop can help you power through those tough grammar lessons. Speaking of leadership, they talk about student council too, right?
Yeah. It's not about the campaign speeches, though. It's about the skills you develop in leadership roles. Public speaking, organization, diplomacy. And guess what? Those are all essential for communicating in English, too.
So if you're someone who hates public speaking, joining student council could actually be a sneaky way to get over that fear and boost your English confidence at the same time. What about clubs?
Definitely, but Effortless English Zone makes a distinction between academic clubs and hobby clubs.
Okay.
Let's say you join a science club. Not only are you learning more about science, which can help you understand English texts about science, as we talked about, but you're also discussing and debating in English.
So you're reinforcing what you know and practicing your English at the same time.
Exactly.
Double the learning. What about hobby clubs?
So think about joining something like a book club, one that's full of native English speakers. You'd be expanding your vocabulary, getting exposed to different writing styles, and you'd be engaging in those discussions and absorbing how they talk.
It's all about immersing yourself in the language. They also recommend volunteering.
Right. Now, they're not saying you'll become fluent from serving soup. The point is that volunteering helps you develop empathy and understand different cultures better, which are valuable for learning a language, because language is more than just words.
I see. Volunteering can give you insight into how people actually use the language. So they also talk about balancing all of this, right? Academics, extracurriculars, and real life.
They do. They recommend a three-pronged approach: setting priorities, mastering time management, and prioritizing self-care.
Okay, so let's start with priorities. Do you have tips for saying no to things?
Yeah, they suggest thinking about your long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? And ask yourself, how does English fluency fit into that?
Okay.
This helps connect your language learning to your bigger purpose, so it's easier to decide what to prioritize.
So it's about making sure my actions match my goals.
Right. And also, be honest with yourself about how much you can handle right now. Don't try to do everything at once. Focus on a few key things and do those well.
So it's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. And sometimes saying no to things means saying yes to your priorities.
It's about protecting your time.
Yes.
Okay. So once you've set your priorities, then you need to figure out how to manage your time.
Well, their biggest tip is to create a schedule, a detailed one. Block out times for everything. Classes, study sessions, those extracurricular activities, even downtime.
I know schedules can be annoying.
I get it.
Yeah.
But they're not saying to create some rigid timetable. It's about having a general framework and being able to adapt it.
So like having a roadmap, but being open to taking detours.
Exactly.
I love that. Takes the pressure off. Any other time management tips?
Don't underestimate those simple tools like calendars, planners, to-do lists. Those are super effective for keeping track of things.
Yeah, sometimes those are the best. I love checking things off my to-do list, but what if my list feels way too long?
Well, for that, they recommend two things. First, break down those big tasks into smaller chunks.
Divide and conquer.
Exactly. And then use time blocking techniques where you dedicate specific blocks of time to certain tasks.
So it's like I'm creating those little pockets of focus time.
Right. Another tip is to pay attention to when you're most productive. Everyone has times of day when they're more alert and focused. So figure out when that is for you and schedule your harder tasks for then.
So I should really lean into being a morning person.
It's worth trying. And pay attention to your energy throughout the day, too. If you're feeling drained, take a break.
So it's all about being in tune with my body.
Yes,
And that brings us back to self-care.
it does.
So what are their top self-care recommendations?
First, they say to get enough sleep. It's crucial for your memory and how well your brain works.
I know I'm no good when I don't sleep enough,
Exactly. And try to create a regular sleep schedule if you can.
even on the weekends.
Yes.
Okay, what about diet?
A balanced diet is key. One that gives your brain the nutrients it needs. So fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats. And try to avoid processed foods, sugary drinks, and too much caffeine.
Makes sense. What about exercise?
They're big fans of it. Not just for your physical health, but for your mental health too. It can reduce stress, improve your mood, increase your energy, and even help you think more clearly.
Wow, so many benefits.
Right. And find activities you enjoy. Even a short walk can make a difference.
So just make it part of your lifestyle.
Exactly. And finally, they talk about relaxation and stress management.
That can be tough when life is so busy.
I know, but they suggest making time for relaxation techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or being out in nature.
That sounds nice. But what if I don't have time for all that?
Even a few minutes a day can make a difference. Start small and build from there.
It's all about taking care of myself.
Exactly. Self-care is essential.
This has been so helpful. I'm really seeing how the pieces of this school life analogy fit together.
It's like a blueprint for becoming fluent.
And it's not just about studying hard, it's about taking care of yourself too.
Right. But we're not done yet. In the last part of our deep dive, we'll look at how to put all of this into practice.
We'll discuss specific strategies for your daily routine.
So stay tuned for part 3 of our exploration of the effortless English zone philosophy.
Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast. We've been deep diving into the effortless English zone approach, and it's really got me thinking differently about language learning.
Me too. Now we get to put it all into practice.
I'm excited about this. So where do we start?
Well, remember, it's not about overhauling your entire life. It's about finding what works for you and making small changes.
Right. They keep saying it's not one size fits all.
Exactly. So think about what resonates with you and adapt it to your own learning style.
Okay, so I want to embrace this school life analogy. What's my first step?
Well, you could start by designing your own personal English learning curriculum.
Okay, I like that.
Start with figuring out your strengths and weaknesses. Are you a visual learner or auditory or kinesthetic?
That's a good point. Knowing that helps you choose the right activities.
Exactly. And then think about your goals. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to improve your speaking or learn more vocabulary or master grammar?
So being really clear about my goals.
Right. And then here's where the school life analogy comes in. How can you incorporate those core subjects we talked about into your routine?
That's a good question. Maybe I could watch documentaries in English about science or history, or read articles about current events.
Those are great ideas. And it doesn't have to be all serious. You could listen to podcasts about science or history that are fun and engaging, or watch movies set in different time periods.
It's about finding those ways to learn while enjoying myself. What about the electives?
Think about your hobbies. What do you love to do?
I love music, and I also really like cooking.
Perfect. So you could listen to music in English and try to figure out the lyrics, or watch cooking shows in English, or even cook from English recipes.
That's so cool. So I'm kind of turning my hobbies into learning opportunities.
Exactly. And don't just passively consume things. Actively engage. Sing along to the music. Try to make the recipes discuss what you're learning.
Okay, so what about those extracurricular activities?
This is where you can get creative. Think about those transferable skills we talked about. Teamwork, leadership, communication, problem solving. Find activities that help you build those while using English.
So maybe joining a sports team or volunteering somewhere or taking a leadership role in a club.
Exactly. And remember all those time management and self-care strategies.
Right, those are important too.
Definitely.
Okay, let's recap those key points.
Okay.
Set realistic goals, prioritize my time, create a schedule, but be flexible, and take care of myself.
That's it. Those are the foundation for successful language learning.
Yeah.
And remember, it's all about what works for you. Experiment, be curious, try new things.
It's about the journey, right?
Yes. It's about celebrating every step you take.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a new perspective on English learning.
Me too.
I'm definitely going to be trying out some of these ideas.
I hope so. It's been great exploring all of this with you.
Thank you for joining us on the Speak Smart podcast. We hope you get some valuable insights for your own English learning journey.
And remember, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep speaking smart.